dive in.
Whenever you want.
GM? Okay, yes, are we ready? Great. GM everyone. This is Kianga with the Regenerative Finance Aligned Voter Committee. And today, December 5th, Tuesday, is our final subcommittee meeting of the year. And I just wanted to pause for a moment and on a personal note, express my gratitude and say thank you to all of you all who are here in this meeting, who may be watching the recording, and this entire incredible community of participants at MakerDAO. I put at the top of the chat that it's sort of my 2-year anniversary this month being involved with Maker. So I'm feeling very reflective and appreciative. For those who don't know, I've been involved in governance pre-Endgame. So, 2 years ago, became part of the recognized kind of delegate crew and program, and have been really engaged through this entire 2 years of kind of the initial stages of MakerDAO post foundation, and the difficult transition to launch the Constitution at the beginning of the year, which we now call the Atlas. And it's personally been one of the most meaningful, challenging, exhilarating, distressing, difficult, and exciting experiences of my entire personal and professional life. And I've made such great friends and colleagues and learned a ton. It's been enormously humbling. And I have really enjoyed this new phase and working with many of you who are on this call who have joined our meetings week after week. And I want to give a special thank you to Space Exponential, Caroline, those of you who started as aligned delegates earlier in the year, got to know Caroline. And she was an early AVC member, gave us such a great foundation to kick off this endgame experience. And even though she's not active at the moment and sort of had to step away to focus on other things, just want to acknowledge her tremendous energy and spirit and contribution early on. And of course, then to also now thank Mike and Robin, who are here and supporting us as members of MakerDAOs, so that we can continue this work. And facilitators, I mean, the list is endless, but it's an enormous privilege to be in this room right now with all of you in this moment and what's happening, what Maker is in the midst of doing and transforming and re-architecting. I'm sure none of you would be here if you didn't also, share the same sentiment that it's a privilege and an opportunity that's unique in the world, and also, a responsibility, which we take very seriously here at Refi. So without further ado, I just wanted to, share those personal reflections. It's been a big year and we've accomplished a lot as an AVC and as a community overall. And all of you, to the best of your ability, encourage you to take what rest you can for the rest of the year. As an AVC, we've got a ton to bring over the finish line in terms of our quarterly documents that will definitely be excited to dig in, and it's helpful to kind of have this today as our last meeting so we can really focus on that. And of course, we're all digesting a bunch of information that's come on the forum. So 0x Defensor, thank you for posting the link on the Powerhouse update. We've been waiting for that. Tons of great new information and a lot that has to do with the accessibility scope that we're going to focus on in terms of the scope and focus for this meeting. And I guess there's a meeting Thursday. I'm not sure how many more of the Rune and Gate meetings will be held this year, but today's meeting, we are really excited to have David here and to talk to us about the making MakerDAO easier to understand, AI tooling, and in particular, I think that the accessibility scope, talks about how after the new brand launches and we're sort of further along, we will have these communication channels that are public facing, that are separate from governance. And it's clear that we're going to be relying on AI, LLMs, all kinds of things throughout many levers and layers of governance and operations. And so I think today it's really exciting to hear from you, David, on your project. And for those of us who are in the room, the aligned delegates and everyone who's here, AVC members, we want to take that understanding that you can kind of give us today and have the opportunity to ask questions and really help us as we're digesting and planning and setting up for a really exciting Q1 in January. So without further ado, I want to hand the mic over to you, and I'll help keep a track on the comments in the chat, and we'll just look forward to hearing from you, and then engage with folks who want to come off mic and speak, which is highly encouraged, or feel free to put your comments and questions in the chat. Take it away, David.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for having me here. Thanks for the intro as well. Congrats on the 2 years at Maker as well. So I will just talk about a little bit of what I'm building, but yeah, happy to answer any questions or take things a certain way, however as they're needed. I'm just seeing if I can share the screen now. How do I do this? Anyway, so for those, if you haven't seen it, I'm building x23.ai, and I posted on the forums about what we're trying to do is essentially make keeping track of information a lot easier for everyone. And so I'm just having trouble sharing my screen. Maybe Kanga, if you can share your screen, or if you can bring up the site, if possible.
I wonder if there's anyone on the call who could help us with that in terms of sharing screen. David, did you just want your? Is there permission that you need?
I don't see any of my screens. Sorry, let me. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be working.
It's not working. Pampero, is that the right way to pronounce your username? Would you be able to pull up the website and share your screen?
Could you hand over the link on the chat, please? I would try it out.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So what I'm doing is, so I built a system that aggregates various sources. So this includes all the discussions that are happening on the governance forums, all the pull requests that are happening on the GitHub, and entire GitHub repositories, and eventually it will expand to more sources of data. Let's see the stream. Just let me know. Yeah, so on the stream you can see that's sort of the front of the website. So the way it works is we're aggregating all this data from various sources, and then we essentially put them through a large language model. And part of that process, there's many steps in the process, but the LLM helps to summarize and give context to some of this data, and then we do some other LLM related things to help digest that data, and then we rank and prioritize. So we have our own algorithm that helps make it easier for you to know what you need to look at certain times. So on the page here, you'll see what's the latest in MakerDAO community. So the top bit is sort of just a summary of like a daily digest of all the most recent things that have been posted on MakerDAO forums, and it should cover GitHub stuff as well. And then if you click on the controversial button, so this is where it's ranked by sort of activity or the controversial score. So this is to help people, that maybe are a bit more time restricted, and they want to just jump straight into what's the most interesting thing that's currently being discussed. So you can click on any of those links, and then so each of the summaries. So there's a TLDR component that's a quick 2-sentence summary, and then we break down into what it's about, how's the community reacting, with references to each post as well. So if you can click on the footnotes or the numbers, and that will take you to the original post on the forums. Then I try to also ensure the LLM provides some objective analysis of the discussion. So that's why if you scroll a bit down, it has why is this positive and why is it negative, and then also next actions. So the next actions is for a lot of forum discussions, sometimes there's a vote, or there's maybe there's no action, or there's links to other related materials. So this is a way to help, I guess, surface that content for people, so then they can easily just see what's the next action. And then on the sidebar, if you hover on the side, this is all the related discussions. So, I mean, on a technical sense, it's using vector embeddings, which comes from, I guess, machine learning, the machine learning industry. But so essentially, what this is doing, it's like Netflix or Amazon recommended products in a way, in that it surfaces what's similar to what you're currently reading, and this goes across all sorts of pieces of content. So there's discussions. It also looks at any pull requests or any code files that might be related to that. And then if we click on the top right, so it says code in the navbar, yep, that one. So here, this is like where you can we've summarized the repositories, so you can see a DSS for the developers out there. MakerDAO is quite well known for its terminology that's used in the code. So I found that the LLM does quite well with essentially creating some alternative documentation for these repositories, which is quite helpful for developers. So you can click on, let's say, repository summary. Yep, just that one. And you see here, it's essentially we've indexed every single file in the repository, and then it gives a pretty good overview of it, including some of the definitions. So some of the famous terms of Maker, cat, clip, dog, join, jug, all that stuff. It helps summarize it pretty effectively, and it can do the same with discussions as well. So I think that helps a lot with sort of newcomers like myself, that maybe aren't as deep in MakerDAO and MakerDAO terminology. We can quickly grasp what's going on in MakerDAO. And then if you go to, let's say, back to discussions, the discussions menu. Here we have this is a table of all the posts that we index as well. So you can search by sort of a title, asset. So it's got quite a quick way to find what you're looking for as well. So if you type in I don't know, type in some term that's related. Let's say type in make a burn. Let's see what comes up there. Hopefully something comes up. Not sure if it's loading or I think it's loading. So it will search through all those discussions, and it will bring up the relevant posts. I plan to implement a much better search experience soon that will search across all the different types of information. But that's how it works at the moment. And I think that sort of covers most of it. I mean, we have the pull requests as well. That's in the code section, but I don't know how relevant that is to this group. But it's quite good for, let's say, developers that want to see, if you click on the pull requests button now. So these are all the pull requests to the current repository, which is DSS repository. So you can see I mean, it hasn't been updated in a while. But if you click the drop-down menu where DSS is, yeah, so these are all the repositories. So we have the MIPS as well. So if you click on MIPS, actually, maybe that's a bit more interesting one. So the MIPS repository, essentially, yeah, we can surface all the information that's coming out of the MIPS that get implemented as well, and that can be quite interesting, especially to give context to certain forum discussions that are happening. But yeah, that's I guess all I had. But yeah, happy to dive into details.
Well, that's a great overview, David. Thank you so much. I see a couple of comments in the chat, but I first wanted to ask if you could give us a little more of a general introduction about you and who's been involved in this product. And I'm just curious, kind of your history with Maker, or what made you interested in tackling this, and what else you'd like to see happen, or how else you envision engaging with the community going forward.
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. So I've been in like crypto for quite a while now, since 2015. I was with Coinbase back then, and then in 2020 I was with Aave. Actually, the way I joined Aave was that I had a position on Maker. This was before multi-collateral DAI. Actually, no, it was when multi-collateral DAI just got released. So what I created was what I called it was the first collateral swap. So we swapped the underlying collateral using Aave Flash Loan in a MakerDAO, a CDP, in one transaction. So that's how I sort of got pretty deep in the DeFi space by doing that. That's also how I got to work with Aave. And then I've been, just as a DeFi user, I've been using, Maker since single collateral DAI, and have a lot of friends that also are a part of the MakerDAO ecosystem. In regards to this tool, so actually, at the moment it's just myself working, like hacking on this and building it out. My hope is that it can, become a useful tool for like really anyone that's in the crypto space. The way I started it was that essentially I was solving my own problem. There's protocols like Maker, Aave and Uniswap and Arbitrum or Optimism, like many protocols that I'm interested in, but I just don't have time to check all their forums or check all their Twitters and to process all the information that's coming in. So I wanted to create something that would solve that problem for myself. And then I found that problem is actually a pretty common problem for a lot of people, especially as more and more protocols are coming online. So that's how I got to this stage. And then in regards to the MakerDAO ecosystem specifically, my main thing is to provide like a tool that is just useful to the community. And I think each DAO, each protocol is quite different in their needs. I've spoken to a few. So I'm looking to understand, what are MakerDAO's needs that are specific to this community that I could help with. And I know you're doing, like I've spoken to Rune and about all the things that you're doing with Atlas and the gates. And I think there might be some space there where I could contribute, and it won't necessarily overlap with a lot of things that are already happening, but something that can be done in conjunction with that other stuff. So yeah, I'm sort of just here to listen and learn, and I was hoping to get some feedback on the product, both from general user perspective, but also from MakerDAO's perspective on what would be useful for the community.
Amazing. That's so great. Thanks for that. And just wanted to pivot to the chat. We have a couple of questions coming in from delegates, Ikagi and True Name, and Mike with Abundance. Do you want to? You can see that, yes. Do you want to take the first one about ChatGPT-4 and kind of how that's working in the product?
Yeah, sure. So I can read out the question, I guess. The question is about GPT-4 and whether I guess the question is how does it work underneath? So GPT-4 is one of the LLMs that are utilized here. But it's one part of many. and connecting to the API, there's not necessarily an API for a good API for discourse. There's a lot of like rate limiting and things. So there's a bit of hacks and things you gotta do to go around that, especially for MakerDAO, because at MakerDAO, I think I indexed close to like more than 10,000 topics, and each of those topics, upwards of like 100 replies. But the thing that's interesting with MakerDAO community is that the replies are not short replies like, yes, I support this, but they were like huge essays. So there's a huge amount of data in the MakerDAO forums. So it's not as it's not. I wish it was as simple as like connecting to the API and putting it into GPT-4, but it's not quite that. It's a bit more complicated than that. There's a summarization aspect, but there's quite a bit of prompt engineering to get the result that you currently see as well now. So hopefully that sort of answers or gives some details to that question. And for the next question from True Name, when did you begin work on this? What was the time involved to get into the product? I've been working on this for a few months now, probably 3 to 6 months. And to get to this product, I have I'm a full stack developer. I've been pretty deep in DeFi, crypto, but also I've been like creating some other AI related products as well. So it's a pretty hard question. I'm not sure how long it would take someone else to get to this stage. But yeah, at least a few months, depending on the developer and their knowledge and things like that. For Mike had the question: what is the community response you're getting? How effective, in their opinion, is the AI summary? That's how people use it from actually experience it. So that's a good question. So at the moment, we support 15 protocols, right? So MakerDAO is just one of them. What I've found is that for people that are not super deep, let's say delegates that are not like day in, day out looking at the Maker forums, this can be quite effective because it sort of just surfaces where do they need to put their attention on, whether they miss something. Or whether this certain topic is more controversial, so they should really look into it. And for the delegates, or let's say the DAO users that are like checking the forums religiously every day and looking at every new post, this tool isn't very useful for them because they already know what's going on. But it's very useful on the homepage. So if you go to app.x23.ai. There's the news feed where it combines like across Web3, across the 15 protocols that we currently support, the same sort of concept. So for those sort of delegates, it's useful because it brings in information from other protocols that might be adjacent or related to certain decisions they're going to make. For example, say Gauntlet applies for to do some risk assessment for MakerDAO. If there could be related information on Aave forums around Gauntlet or on Uniswap forums around Gauntlet. So that's just one example, but that's where the tool can be quite useful to surface information that is not in the direct focus of the delegate or the user.
Dave, on that point, just what I was trying to get at is if, let's say, a user in a forum and I'm kind of deeply involved in it, if I were to look at like the AI summary, would I feel that this pretty much summarizes what's going on in the forum, or would I say actually like just the level of accuracy? That's what I meant.
Yeah, I mean that's probably related to the next question as well, from Mikagi around hallucinations. Yeah, so the way it's built now, it's very accurate. But it's not like very accurate by default, right? So as I've built the product, I've sort of as I prompt engineered, but also created other mechanisms to make it more accurate and more representative. So I'm always interested for people to give me feedback as well, whether it's missing things. Maybe one thing that I found, or that a user told me, was that it's accurate, but then it's not super accurate with, let's say, emotional components. So, for example, in a forum discussion, if there's agreement and disagreement between two people's opinions, it will understand that there's a disagreement, and there's like two sides to the argument, but it won't necessarily comprehend the magnitude of the disagreement, because it might be that someone disagrees, like, yeah, I disagree with this, but hey, like whatever. Whereas someone can also disagree, like, no, absolutely not, like I will never allow this to happen, like definitely no. So it doesn't quite understand that nuance between the magnitude.
And is there a way to give feedback within the actual page? Like if I look at a comment and see, oh, this doesn't seem to reflect, what was discussed or so on. Is there a way to give feedback? Are you working on that, or ways to improve that? And like, what's the progress on that?
Yeah, definitely. So that's on the roadmap. It's not implemented at the moment, but it is on the roadmap where the users or the readers will be able to give feedback back to the model. Then we'll feed that back into a model to train it to become more accurate as well. But that's definitely something that is that's on the horizon.
Perfect.
So just continuing with Ikagi's comment, problem around hallucinations. So definitely you have the problem of hallucinations if you use something like ChatGPT. So if you copy paste a forum post and paste it into ChatGPT, you would definitely get some hallucinations. But building a product like this, I've managed to, I would say, essentially eliminate hallucinations. And part of that is around. I mean, it depends how deep you are in the AI space. But there's the method called RAG. So that's retrieval augmented generation. So essentially, you give the LLM the data to create its answer from, rather than just saying, "Hey, answer this question or summarize this," in like a void of context. You give it the context so it can answer it more accurately, and along with some prompt engineering, you can essentially get rid of hallucinations. So that's what I found in my experience so far. With Blue, absolutely, the Gate working group needs as much feedback as possible from people like you. Do you have any views on the current Gate work? Are you following it, and does it interest you to be brought up to speed and participate? Yeah, definitely. Like I mentioned, I spoke to Rune about it. I had a few conversations, and I'm definitely interested in it at the moment, because I'm just fully trying to be fully focused on X23, like the product that I'm building. But always happy to like talk more about this AI LLM stuff. My suggestion to Rune previously was with. I mean, my understanding is that you're trying to create the atlas, essentially the constitution, where it will be the only thing that's referred to.
Yes.
And I don't know if humans can like create such a elaborate document that covers every single possible scenario. And I think in that, if you train a model on, let's say, the atlas, and you wanted only to use the atlas, I mean, I think it'd be interesting. I feel that I think you get some hallucinations. That would be a problem, just because you're trying to make it so strictly follow this, and essentially like killing the LLM's creativity in a way. So that could be a challenge. And then I think that I think like if you look through history and civil law systems or common law systems, like everyone tries to do like legislation, right? But there's a reason why we have courts and judgments in courts and the general legal system, that these codified laws, they can never really cover every single aspect. I mean, that's my sort of initial understanding of what you're trying to do with Atlas. But yeah, happy to be corrected on that as well.
No, I love that. I love that perspective. I'm an attorney by profession, partially, and so yeah, I'm thinking a lot about those points that you raised. And Blue, it's great to see you here. Thank you for coming. With the scopes and our role as in a sort of a voter committee, we're particularly been pointed to focus on this advisory council or scope advisor role within the structure. And I don't know how familiar you are, David, with the different roles that have been outlined for contribution. But we've kind of not been able to make tons of progress as a community to actually onboard scope advisors, and it just sort of strikes me that you could potentially be a candidate for that. But also, I think I'm finding this conversation helpful just to even think about what scope advisory might look like, or what some of the expertise we'd want to have for the accessibility scope. So I wonder if other people on the call have any thoughts around scope advisor work that maybe we could ask David as well. So Robin, do you want to ask your question verbally?
Yeah. Hey, David. So, want to ask, what is the best way, maybe based on your experience and all you have figured out, to handle time-related data in LLMs and all?
Mm-hmm.
For example,
yeah.
on a post, there are multiple comments and all, right? If we go through that, we know who commented first and all, and later and all, right? But when we feed it into LLM or maybe create vectors out of it, it loses that sensitivity of a time, right? Maybe it could go into the prompt, maybe when we get the data, provide the prompt and later on, to give the priority. But I just want to learn from you, what are the ways you are trying to handle time information and all?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think I think as you probably already know, LLMs are not good with let's say mathematics, comparative, let's say quantitative things. They're really good at qualitative things. So when you're trying to, let's say, rank and prioritize content, which we do, it's better to have that as a separate component. So, for example, if I'm ranking a certain topic, the controversial score, the interest score, comes from a combination of views and replies and likes and who the author is and things like that. But that's calculated separately from the LLM. And then the second comment I'll make around that is that when you're trying to prototype rapidly with ChatGPT, you're essentially just using ChatGPT. But when you're creating a system using the APIs or your own model, you have to think of it as a multi-step process. It's never a single step process. So it could be you could have 3 or 4 round trips with the LLM, feeding it slightly different data each time, which may be the first round of data might be summarizing, the second round might be taking those summaries plus some prioritized ranking that you've applied to it, and prompt engineering or asking it another question. So I think that that would be the way to handle it. And then if you're talking about time related things, I think what you mean by time related things, that would be just like a time decay algorithm. So what we use is an exponential time decay. So the older things are, the faster the score will decay, will be lower, just so the newer content is ranked a lot higher. But yeah, the thing about this is it's always a multi-step process if you want to do in production systems. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Maybe it would be good to maybe get in touch later on and maybe discuss in detail sometime later.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, happy to dive into the more technical details.
Cool.
Should I just continue with the questions? Or Ganga, or do we want
Yeah,
ask
perfect.
questions?
That's great. If you don't mind doing the heavy lifting of scrolling through this, I think this has been really efficient and effective. So yeah, I guess the next one is, where are we? Are we with Bonapublica or Blue?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Ikage has a question or just comments. It says this is not no chatbot. Yeah, it's not really a chatbot. I do actually have a chatbot in testing, and it works quite well. Just related to the previous question, it doesn't work very well with time-based questions like, what's the latest in MakerDAO? it doesn't quite get that, but that's fixable. It's just I haven't had time to fix that yet. Okay, on Blue's next comment, the view of total coverage has been left to some extent by introducing something called the spirit of Atlas, leaving room to interpret with a specific bias applied. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, but yeah, maybe I need to look into the Atlas thing again. I think what you're trying to do with what Maker's trying to do with the gates and Atlas is definitely interesting. Yeah, and I mean, I'm a big believer in like future agents will be autonomous and utilize blockchains, both for transactions and governance. I'm just still trying to work out whether what the right approach for that is. Yep. Okay. Bon Publica. So, but what data have you trained your model on? Have you inputted Atlas data? How do you get the model delivered? So the data, not necessarily that it's trained on, but the data that I've indexed, it's the governance posts, all the forum posts, the pull requests on GitHub and the GitHub repositories. So unfortunately, that doesn't include any of the Atlas data yet. I was planning to index some of the Atlas data, but just I know that it's like a living document and it's changing quite a bit when I last looked at it. So I haven't done that yet. How do I get the model to deliver an unambiguous output? That's a pretty broad question, so it really depends on what your goal is with the model or with the prompt. So you can fix that either through like some clever prompt engineering, or like I mentioned before, it's a multi-step process. So if your first prompt is not getting the answer, it probably just means you need to have a few more prompts with the LLM. But there's tons of different methods you can use when prompting an LLM to get better answers from it. Okay, Ikagi says, but this is,
David, I just wanted to jump in and say, I am so new to this space that even the distinction that you're just articulating between a prompt and data being trained on a model versus being indexed, like that just set a light bulb off in my head, right? That just sort of defined the landscape. And I think, speaking for myself, and I'm sure other people, we've kind of, I've attended and I attend all of the gate meetings. We're like deep in the weeds of the doing. And I know we sort of in the last week or two, we sort of tried to, we're zooming out where we've had a bunch of proposals and there's work that's being done to sort of structure and try to, talk about the why of what we're doing and how we're going to do what we do before we do it. But we've been missing a kind of general community education just on even the basics of the space that we're operating in and how it's designed and, what it even is. And so you right now in these 30 minutes are giving me a huge education that I think that I have found we haven't quite had anyone, kind of dialogue with us in this way. And I find that your presentation and how you're, discussing this with us is, very accessible and I'm comprehending. So hopefully others are getting some good insights as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. I'm happy to help. Yeah, if there's any other questions, feel free to jump in, or if you want me to dive deeper into certain topics, happy to as well. This space can be definitely confusing, like crypto, I guess. Like crypto and AI are huge industries. It takes a while to sort of get through it all.
And I think none of us here are shy about being, self-starters, learners, doing our own homework. I think it's also cool that we've like all been thrown in the deep end of the pool. But maybe if there's anything you could recommend or share, how someone who's non-technical, such as myself, or others who maybe are, but in different areas, how can we teach ourselves about how to even think about this task that's ahead of us? What should we be learning and following in the industry? 'Cause the way I see this task at its core is like we're doing this really exciting work of structuring data to, I guess feed or train some kind of AI tooling that's then going to help us, manage all of these various processes at the end of the day. In our policy documents, so, each of the voter committees, has a particular point of view at Maker and is sort of refining a policy and approach and certain recommendations. So one of the things we're working on in this committee is like, okay, what does governance look like for the training process or the development process of an AI data stack? What are the risks, the disclosures? So, I've just independently, I'm sure everyone on this call is doing their own work to get up to speed and think about, okay, how can I contribute? And I've been looking at, the media space is quite far along, and say, TikTok or YouTube having new disclosures around AI generated content. And so, so one of the things we may cover in our policy document is as Maker wants to roll out these tools, what's the harm that can come to the users, and how do we disclose around that? Like kind of buyer beware or user beware. And I wonder if you've been thinking about policy topics from that perspective about, once these tools are integrated and out in the wild, what's our responsibility in terms of compliance or checking? What kind of capacity should we have, not just to do the work, but then who's checking the checkers? What kind of expertise do we need to have reviewing what we're doing? And then also sort of disclosures that we should also be drafting and putting out as part of the communications for everyone who's participating. And then, of course, those who are going to be using whatever comes out of the next phases.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think around disclosures, like as long as it's transparent, that whether something's generated from AI or is a tool, is an AI tool. I think that's okay. Regarding like checks and balances, I mean the irony is that probably the best checks and balance actually come from other AI tools. So you can leverage like a multitude of AI tools to like check each other, and maybe that's a potential future for what you guys are doing as well, which could be quite interesting. So it really depends. I maybe I don't have enough knowledge of what sort of tools you're actually building, or what. Like I only understand sort of Atlas and gates.
Yeah.
But like what are the actual like gate? What's the outcome that these tools are meant to have?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we also need to tackle. And I know there's often like and I've seen this conversation in the community, well, we don't know what we're doing. There's seen the criticism that, we should get some experts in here to just do it. And, I think this is often a challenge we haven't figured out quite yet at Maker, where you can't just sort of hire some external expert and expect them to be able to produce something useful, right? I mean, we also need to give like just what you've asked me, like, okay, well, what do you want to achieve? And so, that's been and I think we're moving really well in that direction, which is like how to get this DAO, this organization, to actually align on strategy, align on a direction, align on a vision. Because unless we actually know what we want to accomplish at the end of the day, then there's not an expert in the world who's actually we can pay them however much money. But if they're not instructed by the community, which means the community has to do some work. So, I think as I'm thinking about what scope advisors look like, it feels like there still has to be this moment where people with certain expertise like you still have to learn quite a lot and kind of hang out in the weeds with us. So, we can't really easily just outsource the expertise that we need. We kind of still need like particularly the delegates, I guess the top delegates and the facilitators learning enough about your world, David, to where we then can reflect back on our needs it's got to be this little iterative process versus just, oh, we can hire some advisor that's going to, tell us what to do, right? I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I don't know if
Exactly.
others have thoughts about that, or you have any reflections on that particular point, David.
I mean, yeah, I think like working back from the problems that you're trying to solve is always the best approach.
But also that
bringing
someone with your expertise really needs, I mean, I think there's sort of been new language in the scopes around hiring scope advisors that says someone like you should just post on the forum what you're going to do for us, for example, like how you're going to advise us. And I feel like that's going to be difficult without someone like you first spending a lot more time to even learn what it is we're even doing. And I don't know if others on the call think of it in that way, but I'm wondering if we need to be able to compensate people at an earlier stage before they have some fully baked proposal on the forum pitching to us what Maker needs. Because I think if we miss this step of making sure that, David, someone like you with your expertise, who's also external to Maker, because this is also really important, right? Like that sort of can be a little bit more neutral versus any number of experts who will come to the forum and propose something that is going to really meet their bottom line and is not necessarily what Maker needs to adopt. And we somehow really need to figure out how we're going to get this bench of specialists who can be probably compensated to spend enough time to even learn before you'd even begin to put a proposal together. Mike, do you want to hop on the mic?
Sure. I was just gonna say that, just following up on what you said, that maybe there is a way to kind of streamline that process also, of like maybe developers can have an AI tool that sorts through what the community seems to be asking for through the forum itself. Like they don't have to spend all this time on the forum, but maybe like AI just kind of sorts through issues that they bring up, and then the developer can work on that. And then community members can kind of iterate on, oh yeah, this is something that a lot of us want. So just to kind of surface all those issues instead of having to, dive into the forum and spend like an inordinate amount of time there. If that makes sense.
I see Robin is typing. Do you want to come off mute, Robin, instead? Oh, you got to drop from the call. Okay. Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, just go ahead, David. Go ahead.
I was going to say to Mike. Yeah, that's an interesting concept. I had like a similar feature on the roadmap that I was planning to implement as well, where you'd be able to see across the protocols like what opportunities there are. But that was maybe more explicit, where there's either like requests for proposals or requests for comments type forums. With what you mentioned, it seems like it could be. It requires a pretty deep understanding of exactly like the gates and Atlas and like to surface that information through AI, at least in the current form, it might be quite difficult. It's a good idea though, but yeah, I think it's worth thinking. But it's always easier if there's some explicit problems to solve, or problem areas at least.
Right. I mean, if there's obvious things that a lot of people bring to the surface, then obviously those can be addressed. But sometimes they're just these kind of subsurface issues that are not. I understand the issue that maybe it's not easy with AI to sort it out, but maybe it's worth a try.
Well, also, what to your observation, Mike? I mean, it strikes me that might be effective with the core team, like the folks who are really in the weeds building. Because part of my thinking is also that whatever people may claim that they want through conversations,
Mhm.
if they're not informed of even what it is that's being done, or without the expertise, and then also without the leadership or the decision about objectives, I'm not sure how useful it is just to be directed by, kind of a summary of what the community wants. If we don't first filter those voices of wants through, well, who's informed on the topic, and then, well, want to what end, right? Because if people are wanting something because they're, to even I'm thinking about, Mike, your presentation couple, at the beginning of the quarter. And if you have the kind of tug of war scenario of people talking about what they want versus all of us aligned trying to get to the mountaintop together. So I feel like we still have quite a bit of work to do, and that this is, coming together to get everybody even just on the same page, understanding what it is we're even embarking on, and then to begin to articulate. I think Endgame Edge has been really great in talking about this on the forum. Let's spend some time framing out where we're going and what the outcomes are. And then I think, like, once we get through that, and then everyone, like, there's a core team that is really informed and engaged, then some tool that can track and help extract sentiment from that group could be really powerful, because it is really hard to follow and kind of get a sense of what sort of where the alignment is actually even happening.
Right. I agree with that. But I also think, like, that exact point that you're bringing up, that not everyone is informed, that in itself is an issue for, part of what GATE is trying to solve. And I think, David, also, like, your tool was also kind of solving, or at least partially solving, that problem. So I think all of it is necessary, not just at the point where everyone already knows what the
Yeah,
system is and how it works and how we can improve from there, but bringing everyone, those who are not informed and don't know what's going on, how do you bring them up to speed? So I think the
totally.
overall community has to be, even those who are not as involved also need to be kind of taking care of, like, their concerns.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, and I know we're coming up to the end of the hour, but you're highly resurfacing, Mike, where we started the call with this accessibility scope, that there are going to be these different domains of communication, that protects the innocence from what we do here in governance. Um, And in fact, I think, last week on Rune's call, we heard from Juan, and it sounds like there's an effort that's much more external facing, and Cloaky, like with your invitation to involve the university clubs, that there will be these sort of parallel, contributor sets, and some will be much more sort of external and a different dynamic, that in fact could create a funnel of people who really, really dig in, but is necessarily designed, David, like how you've designed this tool. It's super useful when you're just kind of trying to even just approach the ecosystem. To just get your bearings, or at a high level know where to focus your attention. And then my sense from the call last week with Rune was that the facilitators and the prime and reserve delegates are still going to be maybe doing a slightly different track of working streams that are very, manual, and that those two groups may not necessarily be collaborating together. But then we'll have these weekly meetings, some that are more hands-on, some that are async, alternate weeks where one meeting is kind of like, okay, here's the outcome of what we've been doing the past week, and then the next meeting is more tactical. But yeah, I just, definitely double click on what you're saying, Mike, about all of these layers in which the AI tools can, whether it's a chatbot or, you know, like Robin has worked on, or David, like what you've been designing. And, you know, I think we'll be seeing a lot from Powerhouse and from other internal teams of the products that are in development. We've gotten, you know, lots of news about that, and I'm excited for what's next. Any other last comments from our participants? Any parting words of wisdom, David, or or requests, or, you know, ways, you have always a home here at Refi AVC. So feel free to, you know, ping me or ping us at any time if we can help. You know, look if something new is coming on with your tool and you'd like folks here to look at it or check it out. You know, we can always, you know, kind of help stimulate interaction. Looks like Zero X Defensors asking about your channels, like where to reach you and how to follow up with you after today.
Probably on Telegram or Twitter. So I just post my Telegram there. My Twitter. Yeah, so send me a DM or something on Telegram or Twitter. That's probably the best way. But yeah, like I'm happy to contribute where I can. So it's interesting seeing, you know, how AI is being implemented across Web3, you know, and other protocols and DAOs as well. But yeah, I'll keep iterating on this product. And yeah, if anyone has any comments or feedback, or if there's any other ways you think I can help MakerDAO, let me know. But yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Hopefully it was valuable and useful for a lot of people.
Oh, it was fantastic. We're thrilled. It was a really perfect concluding subcommittee meeting for the year. So yes,
Awesome.
excited to get to meet you and hear about this. And everyone who's been commenting, thank you to the ADs, and thank you, Pompero, for your support. And wow, I guess we'll see you next year, everybody. Obviously, I'm around. You'll be hearing from us as we are working on our quarterly documents, and we definitely will leave some time before the very end of the year, you know, to share and have some async engagement over, you know, what we're planning to ratify. But yeah, otherwise we will not have a formal meeting on it. And we'll see you officially in January. But we'll be all connected between now and then, of course. So yes, have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, and we'll see you around this week. Bye bye.